Okay, so now we're going to talk about what is the solution, or what do we have to do. Now the solution is quite lengthy, so again we're going to break it down into one step at a time, because I think it's just easier to digest. So I'm going to start off with what I consider to be what is going to get all my fellow developers mad at me. But the first thing we have to do is restrict the profit a developer can make. If a developer makes 10 to 20% profit, we should say, no, we're not going to allow that any longer. You're going to make 2% or 3%. We're going to agree on a fee for what you do. And of course, the developer is going to say, well, if you do that, no one's going to build. And fine, if they don't want to build, don't build. But listen to the rest of the story. What we're going to do is we're going to take the risk out of the equation. The state of Hawaii, the county of Honolulu, or the various counties will guarantee the loans, will be responsible for putting in the money. Now, the developer doesn't have to take the risk. He doesn't have to bring in equity partners. He doesn't have to borrow money from lenders that are charging 9% or 10%, right? He's now going to have a program where the loans are guaranteed by the government. And in return for that, he is going to be the leader that puts all the pieces together, gets the project built. And since he's not personally liable and he's not taking the risk, he should be happy to do it for 1 or 2 or 3% or some flat fee. Now think about it. If a developer makes a 10% profit and we say you're going to make 2%, we saved 8% off the price. If he was making a 20% profit and we say you're only going to get 2%, we saved 18% off the profit or the cost of the house. So again, it's a big bite, but for a developer, I think at first they're going to say, no, this is crazy. Then they're going to say, no, wait a second. I don't have to guarantee. I'm not really taking any risk. I can do 1, 2, maybe 3 projects a year instead of 1. My financing will be through the state or for the local banks guaranteed by the state. And all of a sudden it starts to say, okay, I think I can live with that. The other good news is maybe we have 10, 20 developers that are active today. If we go ahead with a program like this, I suspect we'd end up with a couple hundred developers, all local, because every architect, every engineer, every contractor, every union is probably going to start a small development company so they can build homes or apartments, so they can create income and jobs for their employees. So their incentive is, yes, we're going to get paid a reasonable fee for the risk we take or for the time we spend planning it. We're not going to have the huge risk a typical developer does. The state and the banks, etc., will approve the project, finance the project, and then it will be built. Some will fail, but that's life. The government will just pick up those projects and finish them and then sell them and move on. The key is most people will succeed. And again, if they're local developers, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%, whatever the fee is, will stay local. The jobs created will be local. Not going to be mainland contractors coming in, it's going to be local contractors. What I'm describing is what happened in the 60s, when we had hundreds and hundreds of projects being built, all by local hui's. Usually every doctor, every lawyer, every contractor, every architect, every engineer, every dentist for that matter, was in a hui building some building somewhere. And that's how we built so many units in the 60s. It was a great, great way to do it. And that's what we have to bring back. I know what I'm saying to a lot of people will sound sort of revolutionary. Other developers will be scratching their head going, what's wrong with this guy? The reality is this is what I've been doing as a developer for the last 40, 50 years. I've been doing all of my projects with the intent of making little to no profit, but selling at the lowest possible price to help local families buy. It's not unusual for me to sell a house 100, 200,000 below its market price. I know when I did Po'omoho Camp, we had a house that appraised for 250. We were selling it for 90,000. I'm doing a Wailua Farmers Co-op right now. The land is probably worth 200, 250,000. We're selling it for 60,000. So again, it can be done. I'm doing it. I'm doing it with no government help. Imagine if the government took away my requirement that I have to personally guarantee it. The government put up the down payment so I don't have to bring an investor in. All of this money would be saved, and it would reduce the price of homes by 20, 30, possibly 40% simply by changing the structure. And my development company's an example it can work. I've gone as low as 20% of medium income, and most of my projects sell out under 100% of medium income. And as I get into it more and more, I realize I probably should have started asking the government for help, but I'm one of those guys that wants to just do it, not deal with the government and all the regulations and all the chaos they create. So again, it's being done right now. There's a group of developers like me who work on lower profits and try to give the best possible deal to the buyers. But we have to change this whole idea that we're building so a developer can make a profit. The developer should get a reasonable fee for the service he provides, but he should get nothing for the risk if the state is guaranteeing this loan, if the state is the one who's going to absorb the risk, and in return, they get a reduced price. Now again, if we do this, we're going to create thousands and thousands of affordable units, but it's not going to work unless we can control the units. So part of the requirement has to be any unit, any home, any apartment developed under this program has to remain affordable. And we can explain later how that's going to be done. But the key is they will all remain affordable. They will all be tied to a local market. They will all require to be sold on the local market and not sold to foreigners or Japanese nationals or mainland people wanting a second home or anything else. So we're gonna do this with a series of steps. And the first one was reducing the developer. In the next tape, we'll discuss some of the other programs. And I think as we go through this, you're going to start saying, okay, now I see it. Okay, we're saving money here. We're going to save some money here. And all of a sudden, the price of that home just starts to shrink, and then it becomes affordable. And now it's easier for the government to help us buy those homes and get 95 to 100% of us into home ownership, to lock in a monthly payment. So you don't need 3 jobs or 4 jobs to survive. You know, after a while, you can have 1 job. You know, you can spend time with your family. You'll have more money. Your pay goes up. Your payment won't go up because you're an owner. And remember, we're talking about ownership for home ownership, but also for renters. It's a variation of ownership, but it's where the profit on the rental does not go to an investor. It stays with the people. And again, if we do all of this, the solution is there. We can do it. We just need to get our politicians to fall in line, for them to look at it and kind of scrap everything they know about our market, everything they've done, and say, it hasn't worked. Let's try something new. We talked about taking away or reducing the developer's profit, which could result in a savings on the cost of a home, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. It's also at this point, because we're giving the developer certain benefits, we have to say, okay, you're in this program, it's a government program, and this is where now all of the other items come in about us saying, okay, you're going to get your permit in 60 days, not 6 years, you know, whatever else. All those cost savings, all this chaos our government has created, we got to cut the red tape at this point so, one, the developers can move faster. Now, the programs I'm talking about shouldn't be a really big problem for a lot of that, because more than likely the land being developed is going to be infill, the land in town. They're going to be building apartment buildings, that type of thing. That would be the easiest way to start construction, and that's what happened in the 60s. All of the properties that were being built tended to be in Makiki, Macaulay, Mo'iliili, the town area. All the townhouses, condos on the outer areas were being built. So it was land in most cases that was already zoned, and that's what we hope to start with, because getting the zoning on the other properties takes a little longer and probably needs a little more thought to make sure we're not setting up or making a big mistake by taking away agricultural land that should be saved, etc. But now we've talked about taking away the developer's profit, and not really taking it away, replacing it with a guarantee so that he doesn't have to take any risk. And then we're saying, instead of doing 1 project a year or 1 project every 2 years, you now are just the leader of the orchestra. You put your team together, and maybe you can do 2 or 3 or 4 projects in an 18-month period. So you can do more projects because your risk has been taken away. So I think when developers think it through, they're going to say, okay, this is a good idea, this would work. Well, as part of that, the next step for us is the financing, because that's a big cost in development. So if we can take away the financing issues, it makes life a little easier. And again, if the state of Hawaii will guarantee the loans, if the state of Hawaii will fund a Hula May type program where you get low interest rates, but it's not for home buyers, it's for developers of affordable housing. So now they don't have to go to the mainland lenders. They don't have to go to the equity lenders. They can just borrow 100% of the funds at the lowest possible rate. But the trade-off is they can't sell it on the open market. Now, I want you to think about the two markets we already talked about, Section 8 and Hawaiian Homes. Section 8, it's already controlled because it's people on Section 8. Their monthly payments are guaranteed because they're going to get a federal check for up to 15 years to help pay off their mortgage. Their income is already set because they're Section 8, they pay 1/3 of their income to rent, and then everything else Section 8 pays. So if they're going to develop in the Section 8 and we give the developer a break, the takeout financing should be a little easier. But again, the banks are going to be nervous. These people don't have a lot of skills or qualifications as homeowners. But that's where you require they take educational classes, a home ownership class. All of these things will help. The point is, if we're financing the developer, we're reducing his risk, we're reducing his cost, the end buyer should be able to buy at a better deal, and we should be able to give them the down payment loan they need. We should be able to give them a lower interest rate, because the whole concept is get these people into home ownership and don't put them into welfare, don't put them into nervous breakdowns, alcoholism, and all the other things that come with trying to live in this state and struggle with 3 and 4 jobs. So again, this is something that could be done with Section 8. Section 8, we need 100% financing for the takeout buyer. Again, the government would have to help with that. If they're veterans, well, they can already get 100%. So those are the types of things on just that one market. The same thing with Hawaiian Homes. Okay, if we're giving the developers the break, we're giving him the ability to buy the land, we're giving him the ability to build the homes. Now we have to give the Section 8 or the Hawaiian Homes buyer the ability to buy. If we modify the lease, we've solved one of the big problems. But again, we can come up with finance programs, low interest rate programs, down payment loans if they need it, all the programs that are needed to get the Hawaiian community into home ownership. Again, it's about taking them out of our market, creating more rental units, more flexibility, because the types of programs we're talking about now, a lot of them we can do immediately. But it really is going to be the 5-year, 10-year projects that we need to loosen our market up immediately. So that's where the Section 8 and Hawaiian Homes comes in. That's where the local developers coming in right away and start building the smaller projects, a couple hundred units, condos or subdividing properties, building homes. You get the power of our local construction industry into building as developers. You're going to be surprised how much can be done and how well it can be done. The other thing to think about with financing is infrastructure. Excuse me. We shouldn't require the affordable housing to pay for the infrastructure. If we need to run a sewer line or a water line, it should be something where the community pays for that through the government, right? Our goal is to help the people become homeowners. If they become homeowners, they're not taking unemployment, welfare. They're not going to be stuck in rental programs where we subsidize their rent forever. It's all going to end in 15, 20, or 30 years. They own their home. Their lives have changed. The world is a better place for them and their families. They've locked in their monthly payment. So again, the financing is an important part of the whole equation. And again, all these cost reduction items we talked about earlier, this is where you cut the red tape. And that's important because, again, it helps to reduce the cost. But those results, sometimes it takes years because it's a question of changing laws and changing processes. And government by its very nature is slow. That's why I'm trying to look for ways around some of those things so we can do it a little faster. But I think you get the idea right now. So in this section, financing is a critical part. And it's a question of sitting down with our politicians, sitting down with our lenders, and coming up with the programs that will reduce the risk, reduce the cost, will allow our people to be able to get the funds to develop, but will also give us the ability to do the takeout financing. And again, we're asking our lenders to take additional risk because a lot of these people may be first-time buyers, may not have a lot of expertise in ownership, etc. But that's where the government guarantee is important. Realize now we're giving guarantees right now and don't even realize it. If we put a person into a rent subsidy program, we're guaranteeing their rent. We got to pay their rent. So, I mean, we're doing it, but we're not doing it to benefit the person. We're doing it to benefit the owner of the real estate. We need to make our people the owner of the real estate in every case. And in doing that, we're going to lessen our risk. We're going to bring stability. We're going to give comfort and pride to the people now that can be owners, and their families will be fine. And our local market will grow. It will thrive. Best part, the price will always be affordable because we're going to tie the price increases to wages. So again, we're going to talk about that in the next tape, but I want you to realize at this point, the sixth one is all about financing. Financing for the developer, financing for the buyer, and it's specializing programs to meet every case and every example. Again, thank you. We'll come back on the next one and we'll continue our journey. Bye.